Have you ever had one of those days where you were busy the entire day? Like you were doing things, checking things off, moving from one thing to the next, and then you get to the end of the day and you sit down and you think, what did I actually do today? Nothing went wrong. You were productive, technically, but it just didn't feel like anything really mattered. And then you have other days where, if you're being honest, you maybe didn't even do that much, but the day felt really full. You were present, you enjoyed it, you can actually remember parts of it. And those are the days we look back on and we think, that was a really good day. So, what's the difference? Because technically, both days had the same 24 hours. Nothing changed on the clock. I think a lot of us, we've been taught the solution is to just manage our time better, be more efficient, be more organized, plan things out better. But what if that actually is not the problem? What if the goal isn't to manage your time better, but to use it strategically to actually experience more time?
And that's what we're actually talking about today. It's this idea of time bending. And time bending does feel like an abstract concept at first, but it's really practical. It's not at all about doing more or being overburdened with productivity to a state where you're just feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. It's about making your time feel richer, reducing that constant feeling of being behind, getting things done in a way that gives you energy back, and creating more moments where you feel like this is truly the life that I want to live. And so today we're going to walk through a few ideas from this book that we're going to talk about here in a minute, but we're going to show you how to actually apply the concepts of time bending to your life and what it would look like in practical application, because that's where it really clicks. If we haven't met before, my name is Adriane,
And I'm Mary.
and together we've been building an online community for women who are interested in productivity, organization, and just general life hacks. Our group, Life a Go-Go, meets monthly here on YouTube as well as in a private Zoom so you can actually connect with one another, and we post videos here each week. We would love it if you would help us on our journey by hitting the like and subscribe buttons below.
And today's video is inspired by the book Time Bending by Dan McCollum. While this is a religious book, we're not coming from a religious perspective, but rather focusing on the principles that apply to anyone in any season of life.
So, what is time bending? The simplest way to think about this is to stop thinking about time like a limited resource that you just spend and start thinking about it as something you can multiply and even invest. I think so many of us are operating from that idea that we only have a fixed amount of time and we're just trying to divide it up better. If I spend an hour here, if I spend 30 minutes there, or if I just had a new planner, I would be able to manage my time better and get everything done, right?
Mhm.
But time bending actually asks a different question. It asks the question of what if instead of just spending time, you use it in a way to get more time back later? And I think the easiest way to understand this, Mary, is with money, right? We all kind of understand money. And so if you think about time, we basically have a fixed bank account, right? We don't know how much is in it, unlike our real bank account, but we have a fixed amount of time, just like we have a fixed amount of dollars. And we could just spend that time doing things and allocating, like, okay, so much of this budget's going here, so much of my time budget's going there. But again, what if we invest and multiply it? So just like money, if you spend it, it's gone. But if you invest, you have more for the future, right?
Mhm.
And really, even just watching this video today, most of you are time bending because you're not just spending a fixed number of minutes watching this YouTube video, but rather you're gaining knowledge that's going to help you compound and save time in the months and years to come.
So I'll give a decluttering example. It's probably one of the clearest things we can talk about. So there was a UCLA study that found out that Americans spend 2.5 days a year looking for lost items. That is a lot of time, if you ask me. And then you think about it. You're looking for your keys. You're looking for the paperwork. You're looking for something you know you just had and you've put down somewhere. I mean, you could easily spend, what, 10 minutes a day looking for stuff? And
Mm.
another study showed us that you can save about 40% of your cleaning time, or about an hour a week, when your home is decluttered. So let's slow that down. If you declutter for 15 minutes a day, that's about 90 hours a year. Therefore, you're gaining back 112 hours every year. That is a lot. So you didn't lose time. You actually were multiplying it. You're time bending by decluttering and being able to find things. That's a good example of time building.
Another key concept in the book, Mary, is that the clock alone doesn't measure how much time you have. It's rather how you're experiencing time, right?
Yep.
So in the book, the author talks about the season of his life where he was traveling to different countries and he basically had no Tuesday. Like he would leave home on a Monday and arrive on a Wednesday, right?
Hmm.
But he didn't just lose a whole day of his life traveling, right? It was all perspectives. He woke up in the morning, he went to bed at night. So even though on the calendar it looks like he lost time, he really didn't. We recently just had the daylight savings time here, and it's always such a burden. But we're not really losing an hour, gaining an hour. The clock itself is just different. So we're still getting 24 hours. It just feels different. And in our lives, we see this too. There's probably have been seasons where we feel like time goes so slow. Like when you were a kid, it felt like time dragged on forever. And now it feels like time's flying, right? It's
Hmm.
all about where you are in your environment, where your focus is, your energy is, and what are you doing during this time.
He also talks about the Kairos versus Kronos. And I just thought this was a very interesting way to look at time. So there are two types of time, Kronos and Kairos. Kronos is really what we're used to. It's measurable. Minutes, hours, days, deadlines, due dates, that type of thing. It's structured, it's logical, it's measurable. And if Kronos was a person, he'd be serious and scheduled and time blocked and focused on getting things done. And we need that. We need that. But then there's also Kairos. Kairos is meaningful time. That's Kairos. It's experiential time. It's the moments that stay with you, the memories that you call back. I'll give you a good example. It's like sitting by the pool. When the kids were growing up, they were little and we loved to go to the neighborhood pool. But every afternoon I was like, oh my gosh, the house is a mess. I haven't done the laundry. The kitchen is torn up. There were a million reasons not to go, but I am very happy that I chose to go every afternoon with the kids because when I think back of them being little in the summertime, I think back of all the times we spent, playing and having fun at the pool and taking lunch over there and seeing our friends, and they were getting better and better with their swimming and playing and splashing. I mean, those are the memories I pull forward, not the memories of doing laundry and cleaning the kitchen. Those were the Kairos time, that experiential time that really, really stays with me and stays with the kids. They don't remember how clean or dirty the house was. They remember going to the pool all the time and having fun. The same thing like catching up with an old friend that you haven't talked to in a while and realize that you've been talking for hours and your conversation picked up exactly where you left it off months ago. Um, Kairos doesn't care how long something takes. It cares how it feels. And when you look back on your life, you don't remember the minutes, you remember the moments.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's why we chose this book, is because it's not just another time management book. It's talking about the balance between both types of time, and it's also applicable across all ages and areas of your life. In fact, one of our favorite lines from the book, Mary, was that you're the perfect age for what you were meant to do. So instead of waiting, we start now, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk about the framework. We're going to walk through 5 ideas: teachability, finishing, what matters, being present, and joy. We're going to share some of our favorite theories, talk about them briefly, and then share ways we have seen this in other tools and how you can take action today and start being a time bender. You too can be a time bender. One of the biggest ways to bend time is through teachability. Now, Tony Robbins talks about how you can compress decades into days by learning from someone else. So instead of trying to figure it all out yourself, you build on what someone else has already learned. And it's an investment because we naturally want to pass information from one generation to the next for survival and for thriving. I mean, it's hardwired in us. So to be teachable, you really need to be open to new ideas and concepts because if you think you already know it, you stop moving. One of the funniest things is the patent office. Way back at the turn of the last century, the director of the patent office, and this may not be true, but I've read this, said we need to close the patent office because everything that could be invented has been invented. Now, you talk about lacking teachability, that's not a good thing. So, one of the signs when we talk about you don't want to learn anymore is that you're not open. And by not being open, one of those big signs is boredom. Boredom is a kind of a, is not is it is a sign of resistance. So question why you're bored and question what you can learn from it. If you're listening to a speaker and you're bored, or you're reading something and you're bored, think about why. Are you resistant to the information in the material? Maybe it's causing some cognitive dissonance in you. Maybe it's the delivery of the speaker. Their body language turns you off, or the way they're speaking, or the tone. Use all of that as a learning opportunity to figure out. So when it's your turn, when you need to speak or present or want someone to understand your ideas, that you can take what you didn't like and mold it around and be even better at it. Remember, boring people are usually boring.
Boring
I
people
learned,
find other people boring.
yes, boring people find other people boring, and they themselves are boring. So don't be a boring person. And resistance to learning is really dangerous. I mean, you're really closing yourself off to new ideas, new experiences, new opportunities, and nobody wants to do that. And sometimes new can be very scary, but in the long run, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I had that opportunity to try whatever it was or experience whatever it was.
Yeah. And I think that's part of also the other side of the coin is taking the time to invest in your education, but not because you need to learn something, but rather that you see it as a time accelerator and not just that tangible cost, right? So we know like, oh, this course is going to be, a couple $100 or this experience is going to take half a day. But it's looking at it like this is actually a time accelerator. Of course, the key there, Mary, is that you have to actually apply the information. In fact, in most cultures, they don't even consider you knowing something until you can actually show that you can apply it. The time bending that we're talking about here all happens in that application. So again, this could be buying a course. It could be hiring a professional organizer who can help you learn about your organizing style and how it fits into your home. It could be attending a fun class. But you want to seek out novelty that will help you enrich your life, be it a new experience or a new way of doing something that maybe you just do all the time. And this brings us back to the concept of Kairos and Kronos time. So the time that you're actually in the class learning the material, that time is going to be so small when you compare it to the amount of time that you're going to save by having that skill in everyday life, or just the time
Mhm.
that you save learning from others' mistakes. And of course, being in the class itself can create some of that Kairos memorable time. It's taking pride that you're investing in yourself. Perhaps you're going to meet new people, or you do something that maybe isn't right for you, but you remember the experience. So, Mary, I was thinking about this before we started, and I was thinking about the time that you and I went to the glass blowing studio in Star, North Carolina, and we
Yes.
saw how glass pumpkins were made, and we were totally invested in learning. I mean, we saw like start to finish these pumpkins being made, and I don't think we're ever going to make a glass pumpkin, Mary, but
Yeah.
the time wasn't a waste because we learned how it was made, but in theory, high level. But we also got to have that memory together, right? So
Oh,
that
yes.
time is now something that we can reflect back on and it lives on, that investment.
Yes. In
So,
the memory, in the experience, and the Kronos and the Kairos. We had both. Nice balance.
right?
Yep.
So finishing is another concept in the book, Mary, and this is probably my most powerful one. In fact, this is why we started talking about this book in the first place. But the idea in the book is just finish stuff, right? Like how hard can it be? And I find this to be so hard. I go around my house like there's
Yeah.
power in finishing, there's power in finishing. But we're just so naturally trained to like just hop between different activities or to get
Oh.
something like 80% of the way done and we don't finish that last 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And the unfinished things that we have in our lives, they don't just sit there, right? They follow us around. I know I could spend hours dreading something and then the task wound up taking like 15 minutes. Or I walking through my house, I'm like, oh, that still has to get done. That has to get fixed. Oh, I forgot to do XYZ. And it just builds this like, ugh, feeling,
Oh
when we
yeah.
should be living from a state of more happiness. And so
Mm-hmm.
the idea is when you finish things, you're actually releasing energy. You're going to be building momentum. You're going to create confidence. You're going to remove a lot of that friction from your life. And sometimes it's actually easier when we actually finish something because, unlike wine, a lot of times as we let things sit, it actually makes more work for us. So I was thinking
Yeah.
about this like with a project that I missed the deadline on, and I was like, "Ugh, now I have to do all this extra stuff from scratch, right? Because the file expired.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Mm-hmm.
if you spill something, it takes seconds to wipe it up. It takes hours to scrub it up later.
This past weekend was so positive for me because I got up Sunday and I was determined to, I had like you, I have all these little bits and pieces of things hanging.
Hmm.
And I went through and I didn't rush myself. I took all day, but I completed all of these little projects that just had been hanging over me. I mean, it was simple things like, put away, get out the rabbits or put away the last of whatever or empty the dishwasher or I don't know, whatever it was. But I felt so good at the end of Sunday
Hmm.
and so accomplished, even though there was nothing mind blowing about any of it. But gosh, I mean, the momentum that I got to build just doing the first project, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. And in between, I went out to lunch and I read my book and I didn't rush at all, but I got everything done. It just felt so good.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's because our brains naturally want to close loops. So it's
Hmm.
like that relief you feel when you close out your browser tabs finally on your computer. There's
Oh,
something
yeah.
nice about actually finishing the whole project. So when I was doing my taxes, I was like, I'm going to take this one step further and actually clean up the space. And I was glad I did because I lost a piece of paper that was important. But
There
like,
you go.
instead of just being like, oh, I'm done with it and then not cleaning up the mess, I was like, okay, what would finishing look like in this instance? And it's actually clearing off the space. And it closes that loop. And I think the opposite to this, Mary, that we can all relate to is laundry. You can't close the loop on laundry. You put it in the machine, then you have to wait an hour, then you have to switch it, then you have to wait an hour. And our brains forget the laundry because we're like, it's not in front of us and it's just hanging out there. The other thing with finishing, Mary, is that it multiplies our time when we do something consistently. So again, like dishes, right? The first time you do dishes, it takes way longer as you're learning the process, but by now you can kind of whip through those dishes.
Hmm.
And the same thing, like if we're doing these YouTube videos, when we started, we were like terrible at them, and they took a surprisingly large amount of time to be so terrible. And we know we're still improving, but every time we make a video, we're able to get better at it, but we're also able to spend less time doing the video.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's another part of finishing is that it causes you to really evaluate your perfectionism. If something has to get done and you have to put it out into the world, we could still be on our first video if we were trying to make it like a Mr. Beast level video. We would never get to that point. And so we knew that the first ones were terrible. And we're hoping these are a little bit better, but we know that even in a year from now, the video is going to be so much better as we learn new tools and new techniques and styles.
Mhm.
We feel kind of weird putting out a video that you don't love, but it's like that video helped people. The information was good. Was it polished? No, but we were able to make that progress and get that forward momentum.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a win for us and for the viewers because once again, the time spent watching the video and learning the skills for them helps them bend time because that's an evergreen skill. They're going to be able to apply it. Once again, applying is important once you learn something. Apply it and then hopefully make their life easier and better and freer to do what they want to do.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of reasons we don't finish. Perfectionism is a huge one. We use
Mhm.
our perfectionism or our lack of confidence in ourselves to put something out. We do a lot of task switching. I know we're all guilty of that, but even when you're cleaning your house, I start cleaning a room and I just kind of go all over like a crazed raccoon, I guess, cleaning it up. You pick up something there, you put something there, and then at the end of 10, 15 minutes, you're like, oh, nothing really looks that different. But when you actually start with like, okay, I'm gonna get all the trash, I'm gonna gather all the laundry, then you can kind of see that marked progress and it gives you that energy at the end of it. The other part of it is that, and I saw this concept recently, they were talking about why we don't finish goals, like bigger projects that we have, and we get them like 80% of the way done. And I
Hmm.
think that it's because at the end, there's really not that novelty. Usually, if you're going to write a book, the end part is like editing, which is kind of boring, right? It's all the
Right.
details, it's all that admin. And so you lose that energy. And if we just completed all the stuff that's 80% done in our lives, we would have like this epic year. We'd be able to use
Yeah.
all that invested time and just be like, out it goes into the world. And of course, then the other part of that is when it's out into the world, what comes next? So there's that real fear of once I publish that video, I can't really take it back. Anybody could watch it. It's not even perfect, right? Because I had to get it done.
Hmm.
But we realize after we do it that that fear is not as substantial as we build it up to be.
Oh, absolutely. And, like you said, losing energy at the end, we talked about it's the administrivia. That's what I call it. It's always the administration at the end that's the boring part. It's not shiny and fun, and it's the boring, dull stuff. But once you get it done, it's done. And
So in the application part for me, really what happened here is really just having that mantra that there's power in finishing and just
mhm.
kind of relying on that and trying to catch that perfectionism. But just remembering that in most cases you can go back and make edits, right? You can do a second version. You could do an updated book.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and then we talked about if something no longer interests you, the
Yeah.
energy is just falling off. So, do you finish it or do you just realize it's done? I'm killing it off. I'm done. I'm putting it away forever, not going back to it.
Yeah, exactly. So, we talked about this with like the decluttering video. And again, it could be the season of your life that you're in. But if you've had that sewing project that's just sitting there and it's like, why haven't you finished me? Don't you want me done? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just been sitting there making negative self-talk to you. Get rid of that sewing project, but you have to actually get rid of it. Like you have to kill it off. And I think that's what we're talking about here. So you're making that clean sever. You're like, you know what? Right now in my phase of life, I don't have time for this. So either you store it out of way or you actually declutter the item, whatever is best for you in this time. The other part of that is trying to not self-soothe ourselves with the shiny object syndrome. It's so tempting when you get to the end of a project to just jump onto that next idea or that next task, and it seems like they always just pop up at that ideal time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because we talked about it earlier in the video. We are drawn to the shiny, fun, new stuff. And then when you get down to that last administrative part of it, the doing part, the last 20%, it's no longer fun. It feels kind of boring. And you
Yeah.
have to power through that because when you are done, you're done. The file goes away, or the book chapter's closed, or the video is completed, uh, or the dishes are clean, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Absolutely. Another area we're focusing on is what matters and realizing that not everything is equal. Finishing is great, but what you finish matters even more. Not everything is equal. There are daily tasks, there are survival tasks, and then there's meaningful tasks.
Mhm.
And if we're not careful, sometimes the meaningful ones get pushed aside.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea behind this next principle, which is focusing on the activities that matter to you, right?
Hmm.
So this is where we talk about things that fill you with joy, that capture your heart, that make you feel alive. And if you just did that activity, you would feel it's been a day well spent.
We are so busy doing the day-to-day minutia that we don't do anything that kind of moves us forward. Like I said, I could have easily gotten caught up in cleaning the house every day. Instead, we went to the pool, and now I have these lovely memories, and the kids have these great memories to look back on and enjoy the childhood and enjoy them being little. So, what matters, it counts.
And this is a really strong example of that Kairos and Kronos time conflict. When we look back on the days, we will often see the memories and not the minutes. So while we are in the moment, we're blocking everything by our calendar and how much time we have, and we're switching those times. But when we reflect back on what the memory was.
I mean, there's a saying, the days are long and the years are fast. And that is why you want to make sure that you are not focusing so much on the next task or tomorrow that you are not living in the present, enjoying today and investing in the gifts that you have.
Yeah. And
So,
so if you're looking into how would you actually apply this theory, right? Because it's a very high level theory. It's kind of
mhm,
understanding what you want to be doing and use that to guide how you spend your hours. So I think this kind of comes into the idea of a morning routine, taking the first hour to work on your goals. I don't think that's very realistic. But
not for me.
where could you actually put time on your calendar to work on
Mhm,
those goals? And again, maybe it's like you don't have time every day, but maybe you could take, half a day on the weekend, or you could take one day a month. Like, where are you actually putting that time in to do the work that really fills you up?
mhm. We said this before, and I'll say it again. You are the perfect age for what you are meant to be doing right now. And that also sounds very kind of woo-woo, but it is true. I mean, what they're basically saying is take the chance on what you want to do and don't waste your time worrying or frustrating or but just kind of go for it. I
Yeah,
like
don't
that.
focus on the limitations. You would save so much more time by just trying it and be like, oh, that was a mistake.
Hmm.
Or trying it and be like, oh, wow, I actually really do like this. This really fills me up. Then you would take all this time, like, oh, is it really right for me? And then talking to 10 other people if it's right for you. Like, just go and do the action.
Hmm. And some of this also in doing the action may mean you're changing your environment to meet your talents. You're
hmm
trying your talents in different environments or your interests, and you hop into a new pond that you've never been into before, like you said, and you're like, "Wow, that's what I needed. I needed to change ponds."
Yeah, in the book
Work on.
they talk about looking at your area of favor, right? Like so where are the places where you feel most alive, you're welcomed, and where new opportunities or new doors just seem to keep opening for you. Because,
Hmm.
I think we talk about this with like our business clients a lot. We're both professional organizers, but yet our niche is very different. So, yes, we could organize anything, but if you had us organizing medical supplies in a hospital, we would be struggling a little bit, right? Or if we were organizing, screws and bolts that we don't have any idea what they are, that's going to take us a lot more time. Whereas if we're organizing something we know with a client group that's in our favor, we're able to get so much more done. And so
Hmm.
that's what they're talking about with the environment. Of course, the environment can also be people that you're listening to. A lot of us listen to YouTubes and we have podcasts and we're listening to these different people. Are they also the ones who are filling our cup in this season?
Right. Or are they dragging us down? Or if we find them boring, what do we find about them boring that we could learn from? Circling back to the earlier teachability.
Really, the whole point of this focusing on what matters is that you're doing activities that matter to you, your time perspective shifts, right? We talked about that earlier. It shouldn't feel like labor. It's more like time flies when you're having fun, but we also hear time flies like when you're in the zone, like, oh, I was just so focused on this project, I skipped lunch, right? Or I was just so into it, like 24 hours went by. And I think that brings us to our next section, Mary.
Yes, joy. And joy isn't an emotion, it's a state of being. And I love that we can choose to be joyful. I'll give you, okay, I have been married 30 years. We've been together 33. And try to explain, I guess this is time bending. I know I had a life before my husband. I mean, I was like 33 when I got 30 when I got married. I was 30 when I got married. I already had a career and owned a home. I mean, I had done a lot. And I know I had and traveled by myself and gone all over the place. And I know I had a life before him, but it doesn't feel like I don't know how to explain it. It's like he's always been there.
Mm,
And it's so important because he is my rock. He is my soulmate. We are bonded. And yet it feels like we've been together for minutes.
hmm
I mean, I think that's true time bending. It feels like where did these years go? It's like I feel like we've been together for a short period of time, but yet it feels like forever because there's such joy in who I'm married to. And it is a state of being. It is a just an amazing experience. And
yeah.
I wish everybody to have that experience.
Yeah, but I think too, when I think of joy, it's like that statement of two things can be true at the same time. So
Hmm.
you can have joy and be going through a hard period. You can have joy and be going through a great period. It's not happiness, right? It's more,
Hmm.
like you said, that state of being. And when you're in a state of joy, you're going to see increased energy, creativity, productivity, and even innovation. And when you have joy, and they wrote about this in the book, when you have joy, time moves both swiftly and with a greater and richer quality. So that makes the time feel like it's richer, although it feels like it's flying at the same time because it's creating those greater memories. And we
Hmm.
find that joy either in the present moment or, like you said, Mary, when you're looking back on your marriage, you're pulling that joy sometimes from the past. So you're looking at that joy of like all the stuff you have to look forward to, enjoying your husband in the moment, and then also reflect on those past memories.
Hmm.
Another great example of this is like when we catch up with old friends, you know, you get together with old friends that maybe you haven't seen forever, and it just feels like the hours flew by. Like you could spend 4 or 5 hours talking, especially when you're talking about those memories, right? The Kairos time
Hmm.
again. And you're enjoying the quality of the experience. And so you might burn 4 or 5 hours on a porch talking with your friends. And if you had the opportunity, you would do it again in a heartbeat. But if somebody said, "Can you talk for 30 minutes to a very boring person?" you would be like, no, thank you. I don't have time to spare.
Exactly. But then figure out why they're boring. Teachability.
So the application here is that sometimes the situation is not going to be great, right? We don't all live in a perfect life.
No.
There can be sad and heavy times, but you can still have that joy. And ways that you can do that is by noticing the small things, by finding joy in the moment, an act of gratitude, like how they do the gratitude journals. But you can also pull joy from the future. And so, you know, once this task is done, I'm going to have a nice garage, or this week is really hard because we're leading up to vacation, but I have that vacation to look forward to. And this actually, Mary, was an interesting concept I heard called the horizonless theory.
Uh-huh.
And it's really impacting the people who are just graduating high school or recently graduated because of the whole, 2020 issues. A lot of them don't have stuff where we're looking forward to. I know growing up, you had, oh, we're going to save up money for this object, or we're going to go on vacation. You go on vacation in the summer, like you go on one family vacation, you look forward to it all year. And now, because it's so easy to access things, and because also during the pandemic, things just kept getting canceled on us, between the combination of the two, we're not scheduling stuff out to look forward to. And that actually can mess with our mental health. And so it is actually good to plan things like, hey, let's just plan going to the movie night 3 weeks from now. So we have something to look forward to.
Hmm. And I think the same thing about gratitude. I think you can just have gratitude in the very moment. You don't, gratitude journals are really important, but just looking at somebody and saying, wow, look how beautiful the sunset is, or just,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking care of the meal. It looks fabulous. I mean, just small little things all day long. It really helps set your brain in a very positive place.
And then you can always pull it from the past. So, like, I know with my husband, I do this, like, oh, tell me something nice, like, tell me a memory of something. And,
Mhm.
no matter where you are, you kind of have that place to go back to that time that you visited somewhere or you traveled somewhere.
Mhm.
Traveling, Mary, that reminds me of something too. Um, is that when things are hard, to remember that Kairos time is worth it. So we recently went on a trip and we were in the security line. They had no airflow. It was so hot, and you're in this airport line that never ended. It was just like down this next hall and then down this hall. And I was like, this is terrible. But I have that memory of the vacation, and eventually over time, that memory of waiting in the line is going to fade. It kind of reminded me of what Gretchen Rubin talked about in terms of planning. You have your planning self who's like, oh, this will be so great to go on this trip. And then you have your future self that's like, oh, that was so great going on a trip. But you're doing stuff when you're lugging half your worldly possessions across the globe through airports with all the lines and all the checks. You really,
Uh,
it's very hard to find the joy in the moment.
mhm.
But
Yeah,
yet, when you know, like, it's going to make it worth it in the future.
absolutely. And I guess that kind of leads over to the idea of being present also.
Mhm.
Joy and presence. And that's that the lack of presence is one of the biggest time thieves ever. That you're not in the moment enjoying or evaluating what is going on, that you are already thinking ahead to the next next meeting, next project, next whatever. And that being present is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And the opposite of being present is worrying.
Hmm.
I think when we talk about worrying, we always think of like, oh, the mother worrying. Oh, I hope the kids get home safe. Oh, I hope our house will be okay. Oh, what does the future hold? But there's also so much worrying that, and that is a culprit, but there's also so much other worrying that we do, especially I think as women, that we hold on and we waste so much time. Like we worry, will our guests be happy with the 20 drink choices that we have in our house, or should we buy something else? We worry about that conversation we had 20 years ago. Like,
Hmm.
we're not going to go back in time and change the conversation, but yet
No.
our brains are like, oh, you should have said something. You ever had that moment, Mary? You're doing something and you're just like, oh, wait a second. What did that
Mhm.
person mean?
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Or, oh, I can't believe I said that. Oh, you know,
yeah.
foot and mouth
And
disease.
we can also worry about stuff that's outside of our control, right? So,
Hmm.
if there's a storm coming and you're worried about it, you can get a flashlight and that's great. But if you're watching the news and there's this problem in a foreign country that you have no control over and you have no way to actually make an impact, all that negativity and worry is just going to keep riding on you because you have no way to take action. And so that's where
Right.
we kind of become more anxious.
Well, because of the feeling of helplessness. As
Mhm.
you said, you can't take action. So there's a feeling of helplessness, which means you have no control over anything, which just exacerbates the whole negative feelings. We can only control what we can control around us.
Absolutely. And another thing that takes us away from the present is putting too much focus either on the past or on the future. So like again, the cats in the cradle song, like, if you're working so hard for a better future that you don't take time to enjoy today and the gifts that are in front of you, then you're not living in the present. And there's no
Exactly.
guarantee of the future. And the same thing with the past, like, and it's not even like mistakes that you made in the past or something, but it's like, the guy who always talking about, oh, when I was in college football and they're like 75. And you're like, what
Yes.
did you do for the last 50 years?
Yeah.
But they're like, let me tell you about football. And that's not a great place to be either.
No. I mean, it can even be as simple as turning your phone off and putting it away when you're talking to somebody.
Hmm.
Not just flipping it face down because it's still going to flash or beep or purr or whatever, but actually putting it away. I mean, to
Hmm.
me, that has become a very current symbol of I'm really interested in what you have to say in our time together.
And I was reading a book by Napoleon Hill. I don't remember which one exactly, but he was around in like the early 1900s, right? And he was talking about how you can't get distracted from your goals, but again, it's that worry, it's the avoidance, or it's just that mental drifts. Like if you have an appointment coming up and you're focused more on them than on the person. So yes, cell phones definitely can distract us, but it's not a new thing.
Oh no, there was a million ways to be distracted since the beginning of time. And also the goal, you don't want to get distracted from your goals, but your goal could be spending time with that person.
Hmm.
And how do you really be in present, spending time with them is giving all of yourself. I mean, really being there, actively listening, paying attention, not wandering off and looking at other things when they're talking or that type of thing.
Yeah, and Mary, you actually did some coursework in deep listening, right?
Yeah, my master's degree is in counseling, and you really learn about active listening and deep listening. And I was talking to a student, an undergraduate. We were just sitting in the cafeteria eating, and I was really practicing active listening with them and interested in what they had to say. And I was eye contact. And he stopped in the middle of the conversation and he looked at me, he goes, "You are really listening to me." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, of course I am." But then I realized that in a lot of cases, people really are not listening to people. And it's very obvious that they're not being listened to. And that was a really lovely, joyful moment that he really felt listened to and that I could give him that. I was very grateful for all of that. It was very cool, you know?
Yeah. Because in the book, it talks about how when you're present, it actually increases that qualitative value of time, right? So again, you're still spending the same, what was it, 20 minutes with that guy, but
Uh-huh.
because you were so present, the quality became a memory probably for both of you.
Obviously, I'm still holding it
Yeah.
35, 40 years later, and hopefully this individual is too, of really being listened to by somebody, because he had some important, had some things he wanted to say, and I was happy to be there to listen. So, yeah, it was very
I
cool.
think One of the other things though about the cell phones that we wanted to mention, Mary, was just the dopamine hits, especially with cell phones. They're just so
Mhm,
addicting, right? Because it's so
mhm,
much easier to watch someone else do it. And
mhm.
then when you're scrolling though, and this is something I've noticed too, because I'm trying to cut out shorts, but it's so hard. I'm addicted. I'm definitely addicted to shorts. Because but like when I'm scrolling, I'm trying to take a break because I'm overwhelmed by my work, right? I'm overwhelmed with whatever I have on my plate right now. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm watching somebody else. Oh, look, she can do it, and I didn't. My house is still messy looking. Or I'm picking up more ideas and more to-do lists. I sat down to scroll the other day and I was like, oh, look, that person has a great looking house. Oh, that person's this. And then I'm like, oh, I should look up and see if that sweatshirt's in my size. Or, oh, I should go check my silverware to see how stainless steel it is. Like, and so instead of relaxing for 5 minutes, I picked up more to-dos, right?
Oh.
So I think it's like Dan had this point of hammock time, and he was like, if you were sitting in a hammock, you want to have that level of rest when you're resting. And I'm like, cell phone scrolling is not hammock time. Like I would have just been better to sit outside on the porch for 5 minutes than to scroll.
Yes, yes. In fact, I think we could do a whole video about how TikTok and YouTube and influencers and scrolling have stolen some of our time.
Absolutely. So much of our time. So if
Yes.
you're looking to be more present, some of the ideas here is that you can take more time to fully focus on the items in front of you. Like you said, Mary, when you're in that conversation, set an alarm or use something else so that you don't have to worry. Like you're not constantly checking the clock. When your phone alarm goes off, you'll know it's time to get going. Also, I think check how you're carrying yourself in the task. So this is something I did see in the scroll, Mary, that I thought was a good idea.
Oh,
Um, we're not saying nothing good comes from them.
there you go.
But one of the things that they're doing right now is you'll see somebody and she's like just rushing to get out the door. She's rushing to get the dishes clean. She's like, wait, I don't have to live this way. And then she takes her time and she actually is more present. So it's an interesting idea. I think we're so rushy that even sometimes we don't even have to rush. And one of the thoughts that I saw was the people who kind of have their lives together, they're not taking their coffee to go. If you're going to go to a fancy coffee shop and spend, gobs of money, $7, $8 plus on a
Uh-huh.
coffee, and then you get it on a to-go cup and you're drinking it during your rush, you're probably going to get to the place you're going and not even really remember the coffee experience, right?
I think when you look at the whole thing in totality, is time bending really isn't about doing more. It's about finishing what matters, letting go of what doesn't, and being fully present.
hmm And trying to get to that state of living in joy. So, again, these are just a few of the points from the book that we thought were really interesting and would apply to everybody. We'll leave the link below. It's very short. It's only like 140 pages. I don't think
Mhm.
it took very long to read it all. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys if you like this format, what piece of information that you might try to implement, and if there's any other books or topics that you would like us to review, please let us know. And again, most importantly, please hit that like and subscribe button if you found
And
this video
share
helpful. And share
and share.
if you found this video helpful. Until next time, friends.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.